Hi everyone, this is part 3 of the Mandrake video, and this is painting the Mandrake. First of all, start off by painting the whole thing black. That gives it a nice dark base layer for the dry brushing and helps with shadows and things. Then I've got 3 colours in acrylic paint. I've got burnt sienna, flesh tint and yellow ochre, and I'm using varying mixtures of those to create the different coloured layers on the Mandrake. I start off just by using plain burnt sienna, and then as I apply each subsequent layer I make it slightly lighter by adding a little bit more yellow ochre. I didn't use the flesh tint in the end, but it's there if you want a really bright highlight at the end. So as you can see, I'm just putting some of the paint on my brush, wiping most of it off, and then dry brushing the colour onto the Mandrake. Once I get to like the second layer, as you can see, you can start seeing the effect more. The first layer with the burnt sienna you can't tell very much on camera, but as you lighten the layers you can see more and more detail. What I like about using the cotton wool and latex is you get this texture and stuff naturally. You don't have to actually like add it yourself. It just happens naturally as you cover the whole thing in the cotton wool and latex, so you get the tree texture really easily. And as you add the lighter layers you can see that those details stand out more and more. As you can see, you can really see his facial features now. And once you're happy with the colour of your Mandrake, I'm adding a touch of green here and there just to make it look like he's got moss just growing on him a little bit, because imagine he's been in the pot his whole life, so he's going to grow a bit of moss and stuff. Then what I need to do is make his eyeballs. Ideally I would have done this before I started painting, but I did forget. So roll up 2 very small balls of cotton and stick them into the eye sockets that were made earlier, and I'm just using my little dotting tool to press that down and just shape it a bit. Then I'm using my heat gun just to dry those off so I can paint them. Didn't take long because it wasn't a lot of latex. Then I'm just adding the burnt sienna over the top of those, and because it's white cotton underneath, it shows up a lot brighter than the rest of the colour on the Mandrake. Then dotted a little black pupil in the middle of each eye, and then in a bit I'll use my dotting tool to add a little white highlight to each eye, like so. And then just taking a tiny bit of yellow ochre, just any little areas I want to stand out a bit more, just like the eyelids and stuff. Then what you do next is paint the plant pot black, if you've got a bright yellow horrible plant pot like me. If you've got one that's a nice colour you don't have to paint it. You could just sort of do an antiquing effect on it to make it look a bit older if you wanted. Mine was a bright yellow plant pot, so I painted it black, and around the side and the front I have added a little bit of texture but not much to the back. I think I might add a bit more to it later on. Using my heat gun to dry the bottom so I can stand it on my desk without making a mess. Then to do the texture of the soil I used sand, and this is just bog standard sand. You can pick it up from art and craft shops and stuff. And as you can see I put a bit of latex on, just fill in any holes with some cotton wool and latex, and sprinkle the sand over the top. Now I am aware it doesn't look like dirt yet, but I'm going to paint it in a bit. So first of all, add a layer of sand and latex to that black cotton wool and latex that you used to stuff the pot with earlier. Then take some brown acrylic paint. Don't worry if it mixes with the paint. What I did is I actually added more sand to the acrylic paint, so it was like a paste that I was applying over the top, and it gives it a bit more of that sort of soil texture. And cover the whole thing in the brown acrylic paint. I'm using burnt sienna for this, and you get a sort of muddy, wet soil type of texture. And then just to add a little bit more, oh, before I do that, remember to wash your brushes straight away. Just to get the sand and the paint out, because acrylic paint dries real quick. If you don't, you ruin your brush like that one. Then I took a tiny bit of the sand and just sprinkled a very fine dusting of that over the top, just to add to the effect of the soil texture. And again, I used my heat gun just to dry that off a bit so I could actually touch it, so it wouldn't actually make a mess. Then I'm taking a mixture of those three colours I used on the Mandrake and just dusting over the top of the plant pot. As you can see, the areas of the plant pot where I added texture, it creates a better effect. But I only added the texture to the pot at the front. And that's part 3. The next part I'll show you how I made the leaves. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.